So imagine a universe where we would go to parents month after month and not address anything they said from the last meeting, or teachers or any other constituent group. So I think when we do the same thing from students, they start to say, oh, they really are listening. And I think it's important to be real. When I say authentic, like say, here's some things you really want, but we cannot do that. And here's why. Here's what our constraints are. What do you think about that? Maybe they can help us think through something we didn't think about. But I think, we can't promise them the sky. We have to say, listen, these are the budgetary constraints. These are the space constraints. Here are some legal issues with that. I can share with them, this is what the law says around that. But our goal is to really try to listen intently and try to make movement on some of the things they're interested in.
All right, I'm Jordan Williams with Issues in Education, sponsored by Courtney & Clark. I'm here with Dr. Monique Darrisaw-Akil with the Uniondale, New York School District. She's a superintendent. We want to talk today about one of our favorite topics, and that's authentic student leadership.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about what you've done in your district and how that's been successful for you.
So, I'll start with the belief, and the belief is that our young people deserve to have a seat at the table in terms of decision making. So when you think about schools, they're supposed to be centered around students, but by and large, for students, all the decisions about everything in their day is made by adults, from the types of courses they take to how long their periods are, down to something just as simple as when they go to the bathroom. All that is really, really dictated and highly regimented by adults, particularly in communities of color and under-resourced communities. We really tend to operate as though without our highly structured environments, they wouldn't do well. So we're really spending some time rethinking that to some degree and trying to bring young people in and showing them how they can influence policy, decision making, but at a very local level. How do they restructure their own schools? Mm-hmm. What are the things they care about and how can they do something about it? So we really wanted to start with creating a framework around student leadership, examining the adult beliefs around that and inviting young people to the table. I think that it's really important that when you invite young people in, that you really give them the tools that they can utilize in order to have the conversation. So that means they need awareness of the issues. They need education. They need tools in order to, understand how proposals are made. So that's one. We make sure they're on committees. We make sure that we're giving them briefings about things that are important, like school openings and curriculum decisions. But the other piece, just for my own leadership, is going into their spaces, so going into cafeterias, going into classrooms, sitting with them during their unstructured spaces to just ask for their feedback. And sometimes they don't even know who I am. My school district has over 6,000 students in it. Some of them know who I am. Some of them say, oh, I've heard your voice. And just asking them questions about how is this working for you? If you could change something, what would that be? And then my responsibility is to report back to them, this is what we did about what you had to say. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit about how we're really trying to shift our focus around, power and who has power, mm-hmm. and how can we give youth more power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so talk to me a little bit about how did you gain their trust? I mean, how do you make it authentic? This is not just, lip service, we listen to what you want, and then we go do what we're going to do anyway.
So, trust is built over time, and you could lose trust, especially with young people, because I think they have had people say that they're going to listen to them and not really listen to them. So one is being consistent. So I have structures by which I have a feedback loop with young people. One of them is my superintendent student council. The other is our strategic planning process by which we met with young people over time, in groups with adults, teachers, administrators, board members. And so I think that being consistent over time, having a system, and also, as I mentioned before, like really kind of reporting back to them. So just like any constituency group, if parents come to meet with me and they bring up, some concerns, the next time I come to meet with them, I really have to kind of report out to them, what is it that I did with those concerns? Either saying it's something that we looked into and we weren't able to make movement in that area, or here's what we did. So imagine a universe where we would go to parents month after month and not address anything they said from the last meeting, or teachers or any other constituent group. So I think when we do the same thing from students, they start to say, oh, they really are listening. And I think it's important to be real. When I say authentic, like say, here's some things you really want, but we cannot do that. And here's why. Here's what our constraints are. What do you think about that? Maybe they can help us think through something we didn't think about. But I think, we can't promise them the sky. We have to say, listen, these are the budgetary constraints. These are the space constraints. Here are some legal issues with that. I can share with them, this is what the law says around that. But our goal is to really try to listen intently and try to make movement on some of the things they're interested in.
One of the things that really impressed me about your talk yesterday was it seems like you've engaged students who aren't the students you would typically think of when you think about a superintendent's council or a student council. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that?
I think that's the most important thing, that we get diverse voices. And when I think about diversity, I think about neurological diversity. So making sure we have special ed students. My particular district has 68 students of Latinx descent. So we have to ensure that our newly arrived immigrant students, our students of Latin descent also feel, our students who are still learning and acquiring English feel as though this school is for them as well. And definitely students who might have had behavioral challenges, because they experience school a lot differently than the higher performing students.
Yep.
So the higher performing students, I think of it as they affirm us as educators, right? Because they remind us our young selves. They're sponges and they come to class and they're excited and they make us feel like, wow, I did a good job. Some of the other students who might have experienced behavior challenges, school hasn't always been a great place for them. So when they walk into the classroom, maybe they're not as excited and bubbly, and sometimes our staff isn't either because they've had challenges with them. So getting their perspective on how adults are treating them and talking to them in school, how their classes are. So are we matching the passion and energy that we're giving our AP students as we're giving students who might need remedial support, right? Are we giving them opportunities to inquire, to make things, to experience field trips, our decision making in the classroom? Are we giving them the same opportunities? And a lot of times we don't. So traditionally in schools, and I've experienced that as a student and as a parent myself, that the highest performing students get the most engaged and passionate teachers sometimes, right? So how do we ensure that those students also get access to opportunity, because we're trying to close the opportunity gap, right? That they have access to leadership, they have access to power, they have access to enthusiastic, well-prepared teachers as well. So it's just really important for me to get their perspective, so that we make sure that, all does mean all when we think about equity, and that all students are experiencing our schools in ways that are safe. And when I say safe, I mean emotionally safe, inclusive, warm, and welcoming, and also fostering their leadership, because they are leaders. They do have leadership ability. But my theory of action is that if we do not give them things to lead in school, then they're going to find leadership opportunities elsewhere. And those aren't always in the healthiest, most productive ways for them or for society. So
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.